Hey, welcome back to the second XenTegra Citrix Networking Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Doran. This week we have two special guests with us. We have Sanyukta Kadarni, who has published two blog posts that we're going to look at, and Saurabh Dave has joined us as well to help follow up with the discussion. And the two articles that we're looking at here today are the ones that were published to improve your security posture and with the security advisory from Citrix ADM service, and also how to identify outdated Citrix ADC firmwares with Citrix ADM services upgrade advisory. So with these, I'm pretty familiar with them. I've gone back and forth helping deploy on-prem and in the cloud to the service, but there's from my understanding, is that a lot of the services and features and functionality might kind of play into the service itself online before it's delivered on-prem. So this might be a perk to some of the folks that are subscribed to the service. So I'll shut up with that piece at the moment, but I'd like to give our guest a chance to say hello and introduce themselves. So Sanyukta, if you can say hey.
Hey, Chris, thanks for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Sanyukta, and I work for Citrix and the product management team on the ADNS side. Saurabh, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Chris. Thanks. I'm Saurabh Dave. I work for Citrix on the engineering side, again on the ADNS group.
Okay, awesome. So how long have you guys been with Citrix?
I've been with Citrix for the past 6 years now, probably six and a half.
Me for more than 15 years.
Nice. So yes, long timers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so welcome. This is a pleasure to have you guys. I'm sorry, I'm a little new to the podcasting world myself, so excuse me for maybe not following protocol with maybe some of these other ones that you've done with other folks in the past. But we wanted to kind of introduce the Citrix Networking Podcast to kind of help inform our customers and our colleagues to some of the features and functionality that are present, help identify and keep everybody safe. And ultimately, at the end of the day, kind of open up that community. So not only are we safe, but we might be able to save a little bit of time here or there. So it looks like some of these, the products that came out of these services that will focus these articles around, they're not only helping with the security, but also saving you some time in the long run. So we kind of have two of them meshed up here. So we'll be changing in and out of the security advisory and the firmware advisory. But is there any real history on this? Maybe why would a customer need the security advisory and the upgrade advisory, and how did these come to be?
Yeah, definitely, Chris. It does have a history. So I'll first start with, what prompted us to build security advisory. So, Citrix is committed to keep its products and customers' environment secure. And we've continuously invested a lot of efforts in keeping our application delivery infrastructure safe against any potential vulnerabilities. So as a part of this commitment, we're always releasing newer releases and builds for our Citrix application delivery controller, also known as ADC, to protect against known vulnerabilities and to kind of keep a consistent security posture. So for this, we do issue security bulletins for common vulnerabilities and exposures, which are known as CVEs. These help our customers identify any potential impact on their Citrix ADCs or gateway infrastructure and helps them plan accordingly. So while these bulletins are really useful as they give a lot of information, the process of identification and remediation largely remains a manual chore. So this was the pain point which we identified, and with that thought process, we thought of launching security advisory. So with the launch of our new Citrix ADM service security advisory, customers can now easily identify the Citrix ADC and gateway instances which have known vulnerabilities in their infrastructure, learn more about the issues at hand, and can take quick actions to remediate these vulnerabilities on their infrastructure. So it's kind of automated the pain point and the solution as well. So identification as well as remediating the vulnerabilities in their application delivery infrastructure is now going to get easier more than ever.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, I've in many circumstances been in situations where I've come in after the fact and to remedy CVE vulnerabilities. And this seems like it's a great way to be proactive in that measure, because a lot of folks, you could really set your NetScaler, and I've seen some of them that run for a couple years without a lot of attention. They haven't been upgraded, rebooted, ciphers had not been adjusted, so bringing that to light and informing in a proactive measure to the owners of the infrastructure components of the ADC, that'd be a big help. Really kind of put that out there for them. So how can the customers, can they consume this functionality that you guys have been able to create?
Yeah, so Citrix as a company is dedicated and focused on enriching our customers' journey with such advanced functionalities available across our SaaS products. And going with that, even these advisories, the security advisory and upgrade advisory, are available in our Citrix ADM service, which is the SaaS form factor of our product, which is ADM. They're available only in the SaaS form factor. So they can consume it by onboarding onto this particular functionality.
So that's the whole call home when you might log into the first time of a new instance that you've deployed and it's asking you to connect. So that's what customers should expect. And one of the pieces they'll be privileged to if they're a ADM service subscriber, and that is enabling them to connect those instances to those cloud services. So this can be a part of the features that they receive. That's nice. So what version of this product should be considered when folks are looking at some of the options?
So as I mentioned, this is available only in our SaaS version. So, and our Citrix ADM service is always up to date. So if you are a customer who's leveraging Citrix ADM service, you can get started and you'll always have this functionality available for you.
Okay, wonderful. So in an evergreen state there, we're always up to date, similar, I guess, to the gateway service, where we're always leveraging and taking advantage of Citrix expertise to be on top of that for us. So that's very nice. So
that's right.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. So how does the security advisory identify some of the vulnerable ADC instances that you might have in your organization?
So I can take that question. So basically, before getting into how it works, let me talk about what are the types of scans that we support through ADM service. So there are three types of scans. One is a version scan, config scan, and custom scan. So version scan is where you just check the version of ADC to know whether it is vulnerable or not against the CV. In some cases, you need to, just the version is not sufficient. So you need to additionally check whether there is existence of a specific config pattern or commands in the ADC configuration to know whether it is vulnerable or not. And the third and the more advanced one is when you need to additionally run some commands on the ADC or some script on the ADC to gauge the output of those commands and know whether it is vulnerable or not. So these are the three different types of scans that we support. As of today, all the CVs, built-in CVs that we support only require version scans. So that's the current level of support that we have. But the infrastructure supports other two kind of scans also, which is config scan and custom scan. And to kind of explain you the version scan a little bit in more details. So let's say if a CV is fixed against a ADC release xx.yy, all the builds that are less than xx.yy are considered vulnerable. So ADM service does a version check on all the managed ADC using this logic, and accordingly marks the ADCs as vulnerable for that CV. The good part, as I said, is that the infrastructure already supports config scan and the custom scan. So in future, if their need arises for supporting them, we can easily adapt to that.
Okay. Very good. So a question that I have is, like I do a lot of the support bundles and run them through the CIS engine to get some kind of feedback on recommendations and if there's any blatantly obvious vulnerabilities or misconfigurations that might be on the ADCs themselves. So does this tie into like the CIS engine, or is it a standalone artificial intelligence that was built to kind of check against the configurations and look at the repository of the components that need to be addressed? Or
so this is kind of standalone. It's a ADM service only functionality where for all the managed ADCs we have under ADM service, we can very easily know about the versions of those ADCs, and we have a CV metrics table maintained within ADM service. So we are always up to date on the latest security bulletins and CVs, and we can easily do the version check. And in case we have to do config check, we can also get the running configuration for those ADCs and do that config scan.
okay, wonderful. So are the firmware and the security scans, those are two separate scans themselves?
No, so in the version scan, Chris, we do check the firmware version, that's the software firmware version of the ADC or the gateway.
Okay, so this is kind of encapsulated into its own bubble there. And then by running that, does it take into consideration, like I think a lot of us know, like the 13.1 code, when that's released, we need to look at advanced expressions versus the classic engine. Now, say like a CVE is released and there's a newly identified vulnerability on, say, your 13 code, and maybe potentially we changed the story a little bit in the latest 13.0 code, later this year is released, but only supports ADM, or those kind of, just as an example, would we be able to identify that we're going to remediate some of those components that are listed to protect us, but also maintain the current service without affecting stuff like if we still had classic expressions in use? Would that be identified with some of the scans, with the feedback that we're presented with that?
Great question, Chris. So I hear two parts to that question, right? The first is that if Citrix comes up with any new CVE, would security advisory be able to suggest the remediations to that and be able to identify? The answer is yes. And anytime Citrix comes up with a new bulletin telling you that there are new CVEs, security advisory feature will definitely be able to help customers and tell them that their ADCs are impacted and what steps they can take to remediate that particular CVE. To the second part of your question, you asked that if there is any deprecated feature, you took the example of the classic policies. So if there's any deprecated feature, would this advisory be able to tell you that? As of now, the answer is no. Security advisory is focused on the security bulletins and CVE specifically impacting your Citrix ADC and gateway. So we don't have that in scope as of now.
Okay. No, that helps a lot. So we still need to check the firmwares and the components that are built into it before necessarily pulling the trigger on maybe a rolling upgrade to remedy those components. But that's good to know. How frequently might a customer be able to run the security advisory scans, or how often does it run on the schedules?
Yeah, so there's basically a system scan where we, as the service owner, we take the responsibility of running those system scan on all the customers who are managing their ADCs through ADM service. And that system scan happens once in a week, once in 7 days.
Okay.
And that keeps the scan report up to date for all the customers. So they don't have to do anything in case of system scan. But we also support on-demand scan. So customers can log into their ADM service environment. They can go to the security advisory and do a scan now. So that will bring their scan report up to date with the latest ADC and CV mapping.
Does it have an unlimited retention of those scans, or do they eventually roll off from the repository for each customer?
So the scan reports. So Sanyukta, do you remember the scan logs? How long do we retain?
Yeah, we retain. So the information will always be up to date, but in terms of the historical scan logs, we keep up to the last 5 scan logs, be it the system scan which the system is running or the on-demand scans. We'll show you the last 5 scans, so you can see exactly what changed and if you have made any remediations, how that changed by looking at the historical reports. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So can these scans be customized to run only against a specific ADC group or data center location, or for maybe only of the specific security vulnerabilities that we're checking for, or is it encompassing everything every time?
Yeah, so for now we encompass the security advisory and ADM service encompasses all the ADCs and all the CVEs. We do not allow any customization to pick and choose specific CVEs or specific ADCs. It's run for all of them.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so you're getting it all, one-stop shop.
Right. And we see that, most customers would be interested to know their overall security posture in terms of, any of the CVEs or any of their ADC or gateway deployments. So we've kept it broader scoped as of now.
Okay, wonderful. So we know like you can get alerts email based, and folks have kind of start stepping into the SMS functionality, but are there any other components that the ADM service integrates into so that you're alerted on a proactive measure?
Right. So we're working towards getting to these special alerting mechanisms like emails, and that'll come up soon. However, as of today, we already do have a couple of alerting mechanisms which we do. So things like we show Citrix cloud notifications to ADM service customers having managed instances on ADM service. Whenever a new CVE is released, they can expect to see these Citrix cloud notifications. They'll help the admin get notified and understand about the impact of the new CVEs on their ADC and gateway deployment. And looking at that, the admin can take a call that he now needs to log into the product to see the exhaustive and complete details of the impact, assess the remediation guidance, and go ahead with the remediation. So that's one form of notification we already have. And I think the second form of notification we have is much broader. So we send out email-based advisory insights to not just customers who are on ADM service, but also to customers who are ADC customers not yet onboarded onto ADM service. This is part of our newly launched initiative, which is called ADM Service Connect based low touch onboarding. So that is another form of notifications using which admins can understand that there is a CVE impacting their deployment.
Okay. And I'm familiar with the ServiceNow integration with the ADM on-prem, but you integrate with that with the ADM service as well?
Yes, so we do have ServiceNow integration in ADM service as a broader product, but specifically for these advisories, we still don't have that alerting. We're working towards it to get alerts via email, ServiceNow, and the other broader channels which we support in our main product. So we will get there soon.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's on the roadmap. That's good to hear. So can you talk a little bit about the ADM Service Connect based on like low touch onboarding initiatives?
Right. So that's a really interesting initiative which we've come up with. This initiative was launched to help drive a controller-led momentum for all our ADC customers who are still not on ADM service. Now, with this initiative, customers can get some key insights into their ADC deployments, including insights on security advisory and upgrade advisory. The insights are sent to them via an email on weekly basis. Reading those emails, they can get to know how many of their ADCs in their deployment are vulnerable, or how many ADCs have reached end of life or end of maintenance and they need to upgrade their firmware, and a lot of other interesting key insights. Once they get that email, to know more details on that information or to take corrective actions, they would need to click on the email link and go through a very simple onboarding process, which would help them onboard their ADC instances onto ADM service to be able to, get the broader perspective or take certain corrective actions on those issues. So this is a very quick summary of the initiative, which is ADM Service Connect based low touch onboarding. The reason it is ADM Service Connect based low touch onboarding is because ADM Service Connect is a new feature which enables this seamless or low touch kind of onboarding mechanism. These emails which are received by ADC and gateway customers have a lot of interesting insights. And as I mentioned, they can quickly follow through a guided workflow to get onboarded if it looks interesting to them. And the onboarding is also made extremely seamless, automated, and easy for any admin to follow. It'll help the customer get advantages or take advantages of the simplified onboarding process, as well as once they onboard onto ADM service, they can get exposure to many more features.
Okay, well that's good to hear. Is there any well, if a customer hasn't onboarded yet to the ADM service, is there any way that they could benefit from the security and advisories in any way? Is that possible?
Yes, for sure. So with this initiative, which I just mentioned, ADM Service Connect based low touch onboarding, they can receive emails. So these have, to fall under this initiative scope, the customer needs certain prerequisites. One, they need to have a Citrix cloud account. Two, their ADCs or gateways need to be internet reachable. And three, they need to have either of these features enabled, either ADM Service Connect enabled and or the call home feature enabled. So as long as they meet, these three prerequisites, which is Citrix cloud account, internet reachable, and ADM Service Connect or call home enabled, they will get these emails, which give them interesting insights, including a preview into security advisory and upgrade advisory, and they will be able to make benefit from it. And as I mentioned, they can go through the workflow and onboard to get the full-blown product advisories benefits.
Okay, wonderful. So say something is identified, and the customer is presented with that and they check their ADCs and they're looking like they're going to need to take advantage of that, of targeting and upgrading some of their ADCs, if not all of them. Then they can step into the workflow and create a job to push those firmware upgrades to tackle these all from that ADM service. And once they do that, and they're marked, I assume they're kind of marked complete at that point. How would we take that to the next step to kind of ensure that everything is kosher as far as like the post rollout is? I guess they could come back and do another scan manually, but is there a rating that is adjusted to show that they're okay inside of their dashboard and that they're on their way to, and at that point doing okay? Or is that not built in yet? I assume it's probably built in at this point based on what I've seen in my experiences that I've had with it. But maybe you can speak to that a little bit, like kind of the experience a customer would have after the fact.
Yeah, Chris, I think you've got that perfectly well and correct. So when a customer comes in, he'll be able to see, a CVE to ADC mapping and an ADC to CVE mapping as well. He can go with the workflow or the mapping which he prefers to consume. For example, if there is a new CVE which has been announced, he can come into the security advisory dashboard. He'll get to see that, say 5 of his ADCs are impacted by that CVE. And then the remediations will be given alongside. if the remediation is to upgrade, ADM already has a very simplified upgrade workflow job. So he can continue upgrading his ADCs by leveraging the ADM service upgrade workflow. And once he's done with that, he just needs to come back to security advisory and do a scan. So he can launch the on-demand scan that Saurabh spoke about. Click on scan now. ADM service will do a scan again and will give him the updated security posture. So if he's upgraded and remediated all the 5 CVs which were getting impacted by that CV which he was interested in, it will now tell him that that CVE does not impact any ADCs. So you'll not see any impacted ADCs on the dashboard for that CV.
Oh, excellent. Based on the firmwares that I've seen, like as we kind of tackle these CVEs and we hop in because there's maybe a 0-day, problem. We want to secure the environments. I've seen, and maybe this is kind of a feature request, I'd like to see some kind of cross mapping between like the supported versions of, some folks still have receiver deployed to the vast majority of their customers or their users. And then, I've gotten into a pickle a few times there where you might tackle that ADC upgrade to secure everything, but then you might have some problems with the users connecting on the back end. So maybe in the future, that'd be kind of a cool thing to see, what versions of workspace app and receiver, that you would affect or maybe not affect, and everything would be okay based on taking action to secure those environments a little bit more, just so that you have that continuous availability of the services that you're presenting on, especially for the SCA proxy through the gateway there, to keep everything kind of humming right along without interruption. But this overall, this really seems like it almost seems like a continuous health check. So I mean, myself, I go into customers' environments and I'll run the bundles and run them through the CIS engine, and then check out best I know, but still at a manual process, kind of looking at the configurations that are in place. But this almost is a full-time employee that you're gaining through this service that is continually monitoring and checking for the security and remedies for any of those issues that we might be presented with. So this is a very, very neat service that is included in that ADM service. So I'm finding it very beneficial. So very good work. This is very cool. Anything else about the upgrade advisories that we might not have touched on or I haven't asked about yet that might be important or kind of neat that you see in the future coming down the line?
Sure, Chris. So I don't think we touched upon upgrade advisory. We spoke about security advisory. So I'll just touch upon a little on upgrade advisory as well, which is the second advisory which we've launched along with the security advisory which we just spoke of.
Okay.
So why did we really, launch upgrade advisory, and how will it benefit customers? So we've seen that as an admin, you need to keep your enterprise fleet of Citrix ADCs always. You always need to ensure that they are not they've not crossed their end of maintenance or end of life. So typically in larger enterprises, you may have a different set of software releases and builds which are deployed on your ADC instances. And because each software release has a different defined life cycle, the admins typically need to keep a tab on the Citrix ADC releases that are approaching end of maintenance or end of life and plan their upgrades in time. That is the software firmware upgrades in time. Now, how do they do this, or how they were doing it traditionally, is that Citrix published these end of maintenance and end of life dates for all the releases of ADCs in a Citrix product lifecycle matrix website. So until now, admins needed to go there, look at the Citrix ADC fleet which they had, refer to this matrix, manually double check which of their own instances were approaching end of maintenance and end of life, and accordingly plan an upgrade. But with the introduction of upgrade advisory, we've helped them resolve this pain point of manual checking What it does, what upgrade advisory on ADM service does, is it helps the admins identify the Citrix ADCs which are running on outdated software releases. That is, either they have crossed their end of maintenance, end of life, or are nearing their end of maintenance or end of life, and accordingly recommend them an upgrade. So it's kind of made the whole tracking process very simple.
Well, sounds like it. Yeah, you kind of, I was steering more that they're two separate components, but they play into each other very nicely as they rely on each other to.
Yes, totally. They go hand in hand. So customer would need to keep in mind both these aspects to ensure that their releases are latest and greatest, and they are devoid of any security vulnerabilities.
Oh, very cool. All right. Well,
just to add probably a little more interesting points on upgrade advisory, which I didn't mention, are apart from knowing whether an ADC instance has reached or is reaching end of maintenance, end of life, it also has additional use cases incorporated into it. For example, we've noticed that many of the customers have a preferred enterprise release or build, which they want all their ADCs to be on. So you can configure that release and build in ADM, tell ADM essentially that this is my enterprise's release or build, and then ADM will compare your deployment against that preferred release and build and will highlight any ADCs that are not on the preferred build. So it's great kind of compliance tracking or preference tracking for the admin, doesn't need to do it manually. It also covers, frequently asked question, which many customers are interested in knowing, that which is the most popularly downloaded build in a release. For example, customers ask us which is the most popularly downloaded 13.0 build. So we've incorporated that as well in upgrade advisory. We have icons to show you which is the most popular build based on the number of downloads for that specific release and build, and customers can take advantage of that info as well.
Wow, that's really interesting. I'm asked pretty frequently what I recommend, and it's I kind of look at the maintenance releases, try to go to the latest maintenance release if I don't need the functionality on a feature release. But that sounds very cool. You're getting that real world feedback there to really kind of steer the direction that you might take with that. And that leads us into maybe a good point. I think I might know the answer to this, but are we looking at being able to run these against not only the VPXs and the MPXs, but is this also taken into consideration the SDXs and the CPXs, BLXs? Or are we looking at everything being included with this?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. So as you know, Citrix has different form factors, and customers use different kinds of form factors depending on their preference. So today these advisories support VPX, MPX, and SDX. However, in future we'll look at supporting the other form factors as well. And Saurabh, you can chime in case I'm wrong, and you can correct me. But yeah, 3 of the form factors we support today: MPX, VPX, SDX, and the other form factors we'll look at supporting in the future. Chris.
I think that's correct, Sanyukta. That's what we support.
I
don't know, slightly off topic, but we also have made a huge improvements in the overall upgrade process. In the past, customers had to download the image from the download site and then upload it to ADM. We have simplified that also quite a lot now, where you just select the image. We have kind of list of all the greatest images, and you just pick the image version, and everything else is taken care by the service behind the scene. So I think that's just another huge improvement that's done on the upgrade process.
That's a time saver for sure. When we were talking in the beginning of this chat, I was wondering about that, because it's like I'm pulling down something from Citrix to upload to Citrix, and you're confirming it's already there. So you just made it even simpler. So there's really no excuse almost at this point to not have it already taken care of. Very nice.
Yeah, that's a great point, Saurabh. So, not just what Saurabh explained, as he rightly said, we've made a lot of improvements in our upgrade workflow. We see more and more customers taking advantage and leveraging our upgrade workflow. And since the recommendations of these advisories are typically to upgrade an ADC instance, be it because it's reaching end of maintenance or be it because it has a vulnerability on it, eventually upgrade will be needed. And we've ensured that we are making our upgrade process as simple, as customizable, as well as automated for all our customers to benefit from.
Very nice, very nice. It's very impressive work. So it's as everybody is kind of grown in their ADC environments and not necessarily sprawl, but you guys have enabled a one-man shop to be able to manage multiple environments, without having to check on it on a daily, weekly, or even monthly basis. We're bringing that information to those administrators so that they can take care of the firmwares and keeping their users safe. Because we know ultimately at the end of the day, it's about the user experience, but also securing it and making sure that everything is as safe as possible for not only the business but the users themselves. So it's just another step in the right direction. You guys have been helping bring the ADC community to realization, and now it's a service that we can take care of and take advantage of. So it's very impressive.
Thanks, Chris. Glad to know.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you guys. So Sanyukta and Saurabh, I very much appreciate you guys being a part of this second podcast as I try to get my feet under myself and get some practice in with it. So you guys, yeah, thanks again a lot. I'm sure this is very useful information for the community and the customers. And not only them, the folks on my team as well benefit a lot from this kind of information. So another perk to subscribing to the SaaS model, again, that evergreen state with the latest and greatest features, it's there to help save you time and keep you safe and enable you to spend more time doing other things besides running around testing and working on your ADC firmware. So I think this will benefit the customers quite greatly. And thank you guys very much for helping to explain this and dive into this a little bit deeper on top of the very nice blog articles that were posted.
It's a pleasure being part of this podcast, Chris. Thanks a lot for inviting us.
Yeah, it was great interacting with you. So I hope you are on Citrix ADM service, and for all those listening in who are not yet on Citrix ADM service, you can get started now. ADM service also has a freemium tier, which is ADM service Express tier, and you can leverage these advisories on this tier. So without any additional license. So do explore it, do get started, and let us know for any feedback.
Very good. There's no reason not to at this point. Take advantage of it. So, well, thank you very much again. I hope you guys got some helpful and useful information out of this podcast. Join us again next time as we look at continuing some discussion around the SASE journey that a lot of customers are on now. And we'll dive in a little bit deeper on the SIA or SIA discussion to see how you can benefit and secure your users even greater. So thanks for joining us today, and look forward to seeing how many people download this, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yeah,
see you later.
Bye.